Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Ryan with Rigs of Death Metal. Today my guest is Matt from Ringworm and too many other bands to name. Matt, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. We can kind of dive right into it. I'm a huge fan, first off, of all of your bands. Only got to see Ringworm live so far. Um,
When was
really want
that?
to, huh?
Do you know who we were on tour with or whatever?
You guys were headlining and you came and played here in my hometown of Huntington, West Virginia.
Okay.
I think
That must have been a while ago, huh?
it's been a while. I want to say
Yeah.
like 2015 or 16, something
Yeah,
like that.
that sounds about right. I think Pug put that on, maybe.
Mm.
Seth Pogasic. I'm not sure how to say his name because we just call him Pug.
Oh,
I think that might be the one that Pug put on. It was a while ago.
okay. I remember it was in like
Oh,
a,
maybe. Oh, if it was 20, you say 2015 or 16, it was more recent then. That was probably more recent than the one I'm talking about.
gotcha.
I'm full shit.
I would say, as far as like playing West Virginia, I think there are really only two shows like within a decade of each other, something like that. Like,
Yeah. We haven't played a lot of West Virginia shows.
sure. Hey, nobody does. It's okay.
I mean, the one that I do remember was really fucking cool, though.
Uh, this one was at like, I don't know what you would call it. I guess sort of like it's not a VFW all. It was like some kind of, I don't know, city owned like a youth like a youth building. I don't know, something
Yeah,
like that. Had like
I used
soccer
to be
fields
really,
outside. And
I used to be real good at remembering all the details, and it's they've all I've lost that ability. They're all blending together now.
dude, you've got a lot of years of shows to sift
Yeah,
through in your memory. That's fair. So obviously we're a very gear centric channel. Uh, Anybody that's familiar with you should be pretty familiar with what your preferences are, but as far as like brands and types of guitars and
I
amps.
have been pretty loyal, over the years to at least the guitar and the amps. I change the pickups here and there, but yeah, and Marshall and Gibson are, especially the V's, Gibson V's and Marshall 8 JSM 800s are the main go-tos, you know.
Well, I know you kind of will rotate out favorites, whatever you're feeling at that time. Right now, what are your kind of your go-tos, or what do you plan on taking out with you next?
Um, we just came back from England a week and a half ago. We did 5 dates over there, and I took two flying V's. I bought one of those. Me and Ed, our bass player, we both bought those Enki or Enki cases or whatever. Are you
Yeah,
familiar? Yeah, those are real deluxe cases, and you can put two guitars in there and fly with them, and you can just check them at the. You don't have to, fuck with it. You can check
yeah.
it. You don't have to worry about it because they're like a tank. So yeah, I got one of those, and I put two Gibson Flying V's in there, and that's what I took over there. That's pretty much what I try to take a Gibson Flying V everywhere. They're just the most comfortable guitar for me, and they look fucking cool. But I mean, you can reach the high frets with no
Oh yeah,
obstruction of any kind. They're not heavy. They don't like Les Paul. I played Les Paul for many years, and they really start to. A couple weeks into a tour, my shoulder would just be. I couldn't turn my neck sometimes. Like Les Paul's heavy, and the V just doesn't have that effect. It's just like a much lighter guitar and super cool looking, great sounding, and you can reach the frets like the 22nd fret is no problem to reach.
for
I
sure.
just those are the best. Plus, Michael Schenker is my idol, and Michael Denner, and
Oh yeah.
uh, Rick Wartell of Trouble, and so many James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett. So many Flying V users that I looked up to over the years.
Out of curiosity, have you watched that Flying V documentary on YouTube?
Yeah,
It's like a whole YouTube channel with interviews with.
yeah,
Oh, I love it. Like Andy LaRock is on there, Andy Sneap, and
yeah. Everybody's on there. That's a real cool. That was a good one.
um,
That's a good, yeah.
what are the two Flying V's that you took out with you? Is it you gotta have the white one?
I do have the white one. I didn't take the white one though. I have a black one with a black pick guard and black truss rod cover that I take. That's my
That's sick.
main one I take everywhere because I don't know why, but that one just I'm like glued to that one kind of. And
Yeah.
then and the white one I love too, but for the second one I took a cherry one that I have because I care less about it. It
Yeah.
made a good backup. It's still a great guitar, but I didn't want to take my two favorites in case something happened. I mean, at least I have
Sure.
one at home still that I know is safe. So I took the
Yeah.
cherry. I took the cherry one as the backup.
Do they both still have the is it the EMG 81s or the Hetfields that you have in
I,
those?
I did. I used to have the 81 in the black one, but as soon as I tried the Het one, I liked it way better. And I just so all my V's are all but one. The white one has the 5766 combo.
Oh, okay.
And the rest of them, I got the Het bridge at least, if not the whole set. A couple of them have the whole set, and a couple of them just have the Het bridge. I usually
Sure.
don't use neck pickup. Rare. I only in the studio sometimes I use a neck pickup
Sure.
for cleans if I do clean stuff.
Okay. I man, I love the Hetfield set. They're just so
Yeah,
if as far as like just slamming the input, there's so much gain in those. Like they're great, but they're still dynamic.
that's the thing is it's got a broader sound than the 81 being so focused and
Oh yeah.
compressed. Which I mean I always love the 81. It does that thing that it does real well. But
Hmm.
the Het one also has that aggressive EMG quality that you're looking for, but it's not so compressed and tight. It's a little broader sound.
Absolutely. Um, and I honestly I love the 5766 set a lot too. I installed
Yeah, I
some.
read a lot of shit, people talking shit on those ones, too much mids or
Why?
something. I like a lot of mids, and I think they sound really good. But I
Same.
like the Het. I like the Het better than those two. But I think the 5766 is that's a good combo too.
I installed the coil tapping version in my other guitar player's Eclipse, and God, they're also even the single coil sounds are surprisingly convincing. Um, I think a little bit better than a lot of coil tap humbuckers that I've tried, you know?
Yeah, I have a SG Showcase edition that I played for decades now, and that it came stocked with three EMG 60s. That's how they were. They
Mhm.
were made. It's a 1988 SG that they made special for Sam Goody. I guess.
Yeah.
I think Sam Goody ran a special every month where they made 200 of some weird guitar, for
Yeah.
Gibson. And the one that I have is a Ferrari Red SG with three EMGs, but they came with 60s. And I don't know if you've ever tried a 60 in the bridge. It is not a good
God.
metal tone. It's not a good metal tone at all. So I had that. I took that out years ago and put an 81 in the bridge, and that still has the 81. And I still like pulling that one out and playing through the 81. Still has a cool sound to it, but overall, I'd rather use the hets.
Sure. I was what a weird choice though, this all 60s. Like all 85s I could see,
Yeah, I don't know. It
but
doesn't make any sense. I took it out and put an 81 and an 85, and then the 60's still in the middle, but I don't even
yeah.
have it wired because I don't need a middle pickup really. It looks
Sure.
cool. It looks cool with three AMGs in it like that. It looks pretty cool.
Absolutely. There's something cool about SGs with three humbuckers. Like it's just an
Yeah,
aesthetic. Or Les Pauls, either one with three humbuckers.
yeah, for sure. For the SG, I was my first musical love was Alice Cooper, and my dad had those records, and you flip that Love It to Death record over on the back and you can see that white SG with the three pickups. And so that's what I thought when I first saw that red one. I'm like, oh, that's like Alice Cooper. That's cool. And then obviously with the Les Pauls, you got Ace Frehley
Oh yeah.
made those made the three. I mean, him and Peter Frampton used those too, but I'm not a Peter Frampton guy. I'm an Ace Frehley guy. I like the three pickup Les Pauls for that reason.
Oh, no talk box leads for Ringworm.
Right? No, no.
God, could you imagine the looks?
I don't know how that would even fit in anything.
You're gonna be tempted now though.
I like Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh I think he invented the talk box, but I'm still not
Huh.
using.
Um, as far as amps, obviously you're an 800 guy. There's like a particular like year preference or something. There's a
But
particular
I
year
mean,
model,
no,
isn't
I mean,
there?
I happen to have a couple of those, a couple from 1985 with that blonde front, kind of,
Yeah,
But that's just kind of more what I what I found at a good price more
fair
than it is
enough.
a preference. But it
Sure.
definitely. I have three 800s and a silver jubilee now, and all the three 800s are um I don't they're not all 85s. I don't know, but they're all original 80s ones. They're not reissues,
Okay.
And I don't really they all sound a little different from each other, but they all sound fucking awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You put an overdrive in front of it, and it's perfect. Perfect metal tone.
They're all bone stock, right?
I did have a couple things done. I had a little extra gain added to two of them,
Okay.
and then one of them is stock. And actually, the one that's stock is my favorite one. That's the one I play the most.
Nice.
The two that are modded are cool too, though. But I have been playing mostly the one that's not fucked with at all.
Out of curiosity, who did the mods, or do you know
I got
what
a
they
friend
did?
here named Jimmy Kekik, and he's really good with electronics. He fixes all my amps for me, does any mods. He also is really good with guitars, and he does all the setups. And if I change pickups out or anything, I just give it to Jimmy, and he comes to my house and picks the shit up, and then brings it back for me. And he's super fucking cool.
If
So
does he have like a website or anything? If anybody else wants to hit him up, or
I, it's mostly he works through word of mouth mostly. I've
okay,
sent. I mean, I've sent almost everyone in the Cleveland scene to him, but no, he doesn't have a shop or it's not like
sure,
it's a thing he does out of his basement, for friends
okay,
and stuff.
that's pretty
Most
cool though.
Yeah, it rules.
I've been down like a rabbit hole of like looking and researching like modded like Marshall mods over the years, and like the Metalhead mod, Jose, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
So yeah, I just kind of I thought that was pretty cool. I had to ask.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and what's your current pedal board look like? I know you used to be pretty bare bones, but some
I did
pictures and
at
things. It
one point.
seems
At one point in the couple decades ago, I used to use a 900, and I didn't. Those don't really take pedals very well. The 900s, because they got their diode clipping is right inside the head, so it's like it's already got a built-in distortion pedal. So you put anything else in front of it, and it sounds like shit. But so yeah, I was really bare bones then. I pretty much just had a tuner and then into the amp. That one I did have modded, and it sounded way better than a typical 900, but still not as good as an 800 with the pedal in front of
right.
it. But yeah, my pedal board now is kind of. I got kind of a lot of shit on there for me anyway. More compared because, like you said, I used to just be real minimalist about it. But I have obviously the Boss tuner, first, and then but I put a Keeley compressor on there
Okay.
because when I first Ringworm is now a one guitar band. It's
Mhm.
just been too much rotating lineup over there on the other side of the stage, and it just made sense to just carry on with one guitar. So I've been running a Marshall on both sides. I have
Sure.
I take two heads and I take two half stacks, run them on both sides, and that Keeley compressor really helps to with like sustain and shit when you're working with two amps like that. I can hold a note out forever now, and I was having some issues when I first started running the two amps together. But so that is first, and that I have the Boss SD1. That's my overdrive of choice lately.
Yeah.
Uh, I use that Boss EQ, that just standard Boss
Mhm.
EQ. I bump the mids with that usually, and like the Slayer frown kind of
Yeah.
EQ, and I also have that GupTech PD EQ. The Have you ever seen?
Is it
It's
kind of like adding a depth and presence?
that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the PD stands for, presence depth
Sure.
EQ. Yeah, that thing is handy because that's like a fix it no matter what. No matter
Yeah.
one stage you're on tour, every stage sounds a little different, and sometimes you're lacking low end, and sometimes you're lacking high end or whatever, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
just two knobs. It's real easy. Like you're lacking high end, crank the presence. Lacking low end, crank the depth. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
a real good stage tool just to like day to day figure out
Yeah.
what you need, without having to fuck with all your other knobs on all your other pedals. So that yeah, I use those two different EQs, and what else do I got on there? Oh, Michael Klein made me a Lonely Ghost pedal that I don't know if you're familiar with
Oh, they're
that.
so good.
Yeah, the Lonely Ghost reverb and delay. That thing is amazing. That gets kicked on for
Yeah.
all my leads. I love that thing. That was a great purchase.
Hmm.
And what else do I got on there? Oh, to run the two heads, I have the Earthquaker Swiss things. That's like
Okay.
a that's like a splitter, and amp.
Yeah.
It's like a cool splitter though. It's got loops, so you can direct your leads. You can hit a button, and you're on your lead channel. You hit a button, you're on a rhythm channel, and
Okay.
it's just kind of a super deluxe amp splitter that works
Nice.
really good. The reason I had to get such an expensive amp splitter though is because I was having a lot of trouble with ground loop noise.
Hmm.
I was running the two heads, and I
Sure.
tried 100 different things, and that's the thing that worked. That's that Earthquaker Swiss things is what quieted the whole thing up for me.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to think, is there anything else on there besides those things? Yeah, I got GupTech MWAC noise gate. That's a
Huh.
one knot, real simple noise gate that works really good. That
Okay.
I think that's all I got on there.
Do you are you everything through the front end kind of guy or
Yeah, yeah, because the 800s, my 800s don't even have
a loop?
loop. They don't even have the loop effects loop in the
Gotcha.
back. I have the Jubilee, and it does have the loop, and it sounds really good when you put like the delays and the EQs through the loop.
Hmm.
But when I run, if I decide to take the Jubilee and an 800 as my two Marshalls, which I do a lot of times,
Yeah.
I tried to use that loop on the Jubilee and then go in the front of the 800, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That just creates madness. You can't make that work. So I have really no choice but to just go in the front, or I would have to get like have my 800 gutted to put an effects loop in the back, which I'm not going to do. So
Right.
yeah, I go in the front with everything.
Gotcha. I as far as like adding effects loops to Marshalls, I've heard was it the Metro effects loop or Metro
Yeah,
amps, whatever.
yeah.
I heard that one's a good one.
I looked into that, and I just decided I didn't care enough about the effects
Fair
loop.
enough.
You know?
Hey, fair enough. It works just fine.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I figured. I'm like, how much difference? I know it makes a difference. It is like Michael Klein told me. He's like, my that Lonely Ghost is really designed to go in the loop. I'm like, yeah, but I'm an 800 guy, and they don't have a fucking loop. So
man,
I just go in the front.
sure. Man, Klein has done some really cool sounding Marshall mods too.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in getting that. Sammy recommended that I do. He's like, you
Of
should get.
course.
Sammy said he had one done. I think it was an 800. I think he said maybe a Plexi, but I think he said it was an 800. And he's like, when you plug in the front, he's like, it sounds just like Trouble the Skull. I'm like, that's a good sound. I'd be interested in that sound.
Hell yeah. Uh, have you got to, well, you said you've messed with that stuff, like the EQs and stuff, into the like loop of the Jubilee by itself, right?
I have, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Um, is there anything gear wise that you're kind of looking for as more of like a problem solver? Obviously, we all like shopping for new guitars, things like that. Is there anything in your, you know, your live touring rig that you're like, boy, it'd be nice if I could do this?
Uh, I mean, I'm pretty satisfied with with the pedal board the way it is right now, and I'm always happy with the guitar and amp combo. But I mean, every time I say that, a few months later, something pops up and I add it to the pedal board or something, But I
Right.
haven't in a minute. That Keeley compressor is the last thing I really added that I never used before,
Hmm.
and that's been a year or two, a couple years. I haven't like added any new toys to the pedal board in a while. I
Yeah.
can't really think of anything I really need. Somebody recommended I use one of those mimics or whatever, like to like that
Yeah.
so the two amps kind of are just off enough to sound like two
Sure.
guitars.
I was
And
kind of thinking about that too.
I would maybe try that, maybe, but I haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah. And I think you can even do like if you get the full size one, I think you can even do like one or two kind of layers up to like three kind of layers, something like that.
I was just reading earlier today. Somebody was posting somewhere on a heavy metal website or a message board somewhere or something, and they were saying if you have a chorus pedal and just turn all the knobs on zero, it does the same thing, kind of like that.
That
I don't know if that's
yeah.
true or not, but I read that earlier today.
Oh, for sure it does. I don't know. I guess it wouldn't really do the like slight millisecond delay
Yeah,
to make it sound a little, but as far as like kind of like being just a micro pitch off,
yeah,
instead of sounding like an exact copy, it's
yeah,
like that was I know Zach Wild, that was his thing forever, was
right,
using a chorus pedal to do the same
yeah,
effect, adding just width.
yeah,
Or like Dime with like the doubler flanger. It's kind of that same idea.
yeah,
Um, I guess really a lot of 80s guys.
yeah. Isn't that kind of what Eddie was doing with the Phase 90 or whatever too? Sort of a little bit, or
Sort of a little bit, yeah.
yeah,
And I think eventually he was just kind of like having fun adding color to parts with
yeah,
like flangers and phasers, but I mean that's really what it kind of does is it just plays with the overall like stereo space, you know.
yeah,
He in the 90s with like, like the Hager days, Eddie went kind of nuts with like the wet, dry, wet kind of
yeah,
thing, like stereo, delays, ping ponging around with a dry amp in the middle.
yeah.
Like,
That's too crazy for me. That's too much. I had a hard enough time getting those two Marshalls to act nice together and not
sure,
not have all the ground loop noise and everything. And now it's amazing. I plug in and I just hit one chord and I can't help but smile. It just sounds so fucking awesome. But getting it there was a not the easiest thing in the world for me
sure,
anyway. So going all crazy like you're talking about in the 90s, I don't think that's in my future.
sure. I mean, that stuff's cool, but those guys were also like, spending thousands hauling their gear around with
Oh,
refrigerator racks and
and they're not doing anything but just playing.
yeah,
Somebody hands them a guitar after they do all,
yeah,
and then they just have to play. Of course, that's way easier.
absolutely. Um, what does what kind of changes in your rig, if anything, between doing ringworm versus like, shed the skin or anything else? Is it just
Well, I mean, aside from just, I don't use two amps with Shed the Skin because we have two guitar players. You know what I mean? And
sure?
same with Whip Ride. Like the other bands have two guitar players, so I don't have to do the double rig thing. So, but that's really, uh, I don't do much different from one to the next. Like I don't have my like in Shed the Skin. We're tuned to B standard,
Hmm.
and that does the work really. I mean, I don't crank up more gain or anything for it.
Yeah.
The death metal meanness comes out from the B standard tuning anyway.
Yeah.
So there really is no difference between what I plug into for Shed the Skin or Ringworm or even Rip Ride, which is more like Def Leppard or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just like I guess my hand probably does some, like I'm not pummeling the strings as hard when we're doing Rip Ride as I am in the other two bands. So that probably makes a little bit of difference.
Sure.
But I find that with those 800s and just an overdrive pedal in front of it, you can get a real good fucking Kiss tone. And then if you James Hetfield those strings, you're gonna get that tone. Like the tone doesn't need to change that much. I don't really do anything different. I kind of just plug into the same shit for all three bands.
For sure. Which just kind of speaks to the versatility of those amps too.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a all around good. It's good for punk rock. It's good for death metal. It's good for
Yeah,
everything hard rock related, pretty much.
definitely. Um, I was a Mesa Boogie guy for it was funny. I went from being a Marshall guy to a Mesa guy for like a long time. And over the years I'm kind of go between like Marshall stuff or Ingle stuff just because like the low end is way more manageable. You have to way less like messing with EQ and stuff. They both just kind of work. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Where Mesas and PVs, like the low end is so flubby. You gotta really kind of dial it in. Otherwise, you're just, I don't know, gets out of hand real quick.
I my first when I, my graduation gift from high school, instead of getting a car, I wanted to get an amp. I was playing through a 60-watt Fender combo amp, and then I wanted a real half stack. And the first one I got was a Boogie 50 caliber, and I played through that in the Blood of Christ days. My, death metal band I was in the
Yeah.
early '90s. Um, and then in the beginning of the From the Depths days too. And then that's when I got my 900, and then I got an 800 some years later, and I've just been Marshall ever since that first 900 I got in the maybe about 94. But up till there I had that Boogie 50 caliber was my amp that I used. And so I'm kind of the opposite. I started with the Boogie, and then ended up with the Marshalls and never looked back.
Right.
But Tom Rojak was the other guitar player. It was his band Blood of Christ that I joined. And he had a Boogie when he was playing through a Mark IV when I joined the band. And then he ended up buying. We walked into a music store together, and right when we opened the door, they had this 30th anniversary full stack. It was like a royal blue Marshall stack, the 1992. And he didn't have the money on. We were just going in to get strings, but he ended up getting a cash advance on a credit card, and then went back a couple days later and bought that whole stack.
Oh
And
wow.
once he got that stack, that Boogie 50 caliber just didn't stand a hope in hell. I
Yeah.
could never be heard again. Partially because it's a 100-watt Marshall versus my 50-watt Boogie, but more so I think because the Marshalls just with that they're more mid-rangey, and they just cut, so
Oh
they
yeah.
scream better. They just scream. So once he got that Marshall, I'm like, fuck, I need to get a Marshall. I'm never gonna get fucking hurt again. So I did, and then I was like, yeah, that's the sound I was looking for.
Definitely. It's I think it's just like an inherent thing in the overall sound of like the circuit of like American amps like Fender and Mesa. They have that inherent kind of mid scoop.
Yeah, the
Um,
Boogies especially do for sure.
oh, 100%.
Yeah,
Um, because if I remember right, that's kind of where Randall Smith started from was like modding like Fender amps and just trying to get more gain out of them.
yeah, that makes sense.
And you know, Marshall, Vox, all that stuff. They just have way more like mid-range presence.
Yeah,
Orange too.
yeah. In England, a couple weeks ago, I didn't take any amp, obviously, on a plane. I brought that Enki case with the two V's in it, and I threw everything else I had in my backpack. And when I got over there, that everybody uses orange over there. Like I've never seen so many orange amps. Every
Hmm.
single plate it was orange amps, and that's what I used over there. Was they had the opening band was this band called Imposter. That's a band from over there
Okay.
from the UK, and I used his. It was a 200-watt orange, and
Hmm.
I was able to. I put my pedals in front of it. I only brought a stripped down. I brought the overdrive. I just brought the overdrive, the Lonely Ghost for the leads, and my noise gate. Is that all I took? I guess that's all I took. And I took the Swiss things because I used two amps over there too.
Yeah.
So and just that SD1 in front of that, I was able to dial that orange in to sound pretty much just like a Marshall.
Nice.
I was able to get a real good Marshally tone out of that orange, which I was happy about because I wasn't sure. I didn't have much experience with orange amps before. But yeah, man, everybody over there, that's what they use, orange amps.
That makes sense.
I didn't see I didn't see a Marshall. I didn't see a
That's
single Marshall in 5 shows we played.
huh. That's kind of strange.
Yeah,
I uh I guess my experience with the orange stuff has been more like the specifically the rocker verb and it always just had this kind of darker, more low mid kind of thing and kind of vintagey sort of gain for being like their metal amp.
yeah,
Did like it seemed like still very mid forward, just in a it seemed like it was in a different focus than the Marshall where they're like that really barky, very cutting upper mid range, but I don't know,
yeah.
maybe it's just the ones I played. I'm not sure.
It definitely wasn't cutting as much as a Marshall, but I was able to get it close enough where I was happy.
Sweet. Um
And for 200 watts, for a 200 watter,
oh yeah,
it's not like the 200 watter. It doesn't scream as good as a 50-watt 800. I don't know why that is, but it
yeah.
doesn't. You know,
Oh well, it's got to be like, I mean, 200 watts of tube. Like even cranking that, you're not even touching that headroom. It's still
yeah,
like all
yeah,
preamp.
yeah,
Whereas like a 50 watt, 800, like that thing's cooking pretty well.
yeah. I
Uh,
almost never turn up past like 2.5 on the
yeah.
800. Because you're already so loud. The sound guy is pissed. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And it sounds great there. Like the
Mhm.
tubes are already hot and screaming.
Nice.
In fact, if you go, I think that's kind of the sweet spot is like 2 to 3. The higher you get, the more it just gets spongier, kind of. You know what I mean?
I used to have the JCM 2000, the DSL,
Yeah,
if you remember those.
yeah,
The one channel was basically just like, I don't know, like an evolution, I guess, from the 900 with the diodes built in,
uh-huh.
diodes. The like classic gain channel though was a little bit more like an 800, but kind of like a master volume. So like that side was pretty cool. And I had the 50 watt too. It's like once I got it to about 9 to 10 o'clock, like that thing sounded absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Still had to boost it, but you know,
Oh yeah. I don't mind. I don't care about that. Like people are like, what's the greatest metal amp ever? And somebody's always going to say 800. If you're looking at like
sure.
somebody's always going to throw an 800 in there, and then somebody else is always going to go no because you have to put a pedal in front of it. Like who gives a shit? If that's
Right.
the sound, then what do it's go get yourself $100 pedal and put it in front.
Yeah.
It sounds fucking amazing. It worked for every band of the 80s,
Right.
every band of the fucking 80s. That's how they got their, you know, that's how early Metallica was done. That's how Slayer didn't even use an overdrive, just an EQ, just the MXR EQs in front of it. But
Yeah.
but all those bands, all those great bands of the 80s, they just had an overdrive pedal and a tube screamer or a SD1 or something in front of the 800, you know.
Absolutely. Kind of talking about like the topology or whatever of like American versus English amps. I was just watching this video yesterday about, guys having kind of a roundtable discussion about dialing in a plexi
Yeah,
and how they would, of course, with the four inputs, you would plug into one and then jump the different inputs, and you would kind of use the separate volume controls to blend in the channels and kind of you're EQing it that way.
yeah,
They were talking about, turning the mids down on those would actually kind of, if you were going for a cleaner, more like that kind of spanky sort of Hendrix clean tone kind of thing, just turn your
yeah,
mids down. If you want it dirtier, a little bit more, a little more ruckus out of it, turn your
yeah,
mids up.
right.
It's like I can't help but think it maybe some of like the American amp builders kind of thought of that same thing in the circuit, turning the mids down inherently so they could get, especially Fender,
Uh,
cleaner at louder volume kind of thing. I don't
yeah.
know. Sorry, just real nerding out.
There was, yeah, when those Fender amps originally were being made, they were a lot of the amp builders were 100% against distortion.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were people weren't looking for distortion yet at that point. They thought of it as a bad thing, like oh, it's getting dirty. I don't, why would I want that? Until
right.
until I guess the Kinks probably or somebody, were like,
Oh
you
yeah,
really got me or something was like, where he was like slashing his speakers with a knife to get it to break up, and stuff.
right.
And then people were like, "Oh, that's why you might want fucking distortion." you know? Sounds incredible.
It's like a buddy of mine, his band was tracking some parts with a Vox AC30. He's
Yeah,
like, dude, that thing it has so much headroom. It gets so loud, it gives you straight up vertigo. Like,
yeah. In Rip Ride, the other guitar player, Dave Rogers, he took Wayne Richards' place, who was our original guitar player,
Mhm.
so he's been in the band about a year now. Dave has, and that's what he brought to practice the first time was a Vox 30, and I was like, oh, for one thing, it looks like it's going to sound like
Hmm.
uh, the Stones or something, which is I love the Stones, but it's not.
Sure.
But we're trying to sound like Def Leppard or Dokken or something, you know. And I was like, I was a little bit worried about what kind of how he was going to get a metal tone out of it. But he puts an SD1 in front of him. He's got an MXR EQ, and that thing competes with my Marshall no problem. Like I have to actually turn up
Wow.
a little louder than usual to compete with that 30-watt Vox. You know,
It's
thing sounds
crazy.
great. He gets
I've
a Marshally sound out of that thing.
hmm. I've always wanted to get one and like some kind of like treble booster clone and just kind of sort of do like the Brian May thing with it.
Yeah,
I've always been a big Queen fan, but
yeah. Treble boosters were big in the 70s. Everybody used that
yeah,
treble pedal.
yeah, Brian May, Tony Iommi. Yep.
Yeah, Tony Iommi.
Um, I'm all, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. Somebody always gives me crap for not asking. Tuning and string gauge for ringworm specifically.
Okay, D standard. We're tuned to D standard, so death tuning, or
Of
like
course.
mid '80s death metal bands tuning Massacre and Death and all those bands that
Oh yeah.
and because it's just like low enough to heavy it up a little, but not low enough that you have to put telephone fucking wire on your fucking guitar, to keep the tension. So yeah, Ringworm is in D standard, and I use 10 to 52 Ernie Ball. I like the Ernie Ball paradigms is what I've been using as of
Oh,
late.
those are good.
Yeah, because you can put those things on, and a regular set of strings I would change every 3 days on tour,
Mhm.
just to reduce risk of snapping the string, and plus they start to sound dull. But the paradigms with that coating they have on them and everything, I do a week confidently, and they don't lose any sound. I could probably do a lot more because at home I'll keep those strings on for a month or two because I'm not worried about if I break a string because
Sure.
nobody's watching. You know what I mean? But I don't risk too much more than 7 shows in a row on tour. But yeah, the Ernie Ball paradigm 10 to 52 is what I've been using for Ringworm, and then for Rip Ride, we're in E flat Kiss tuning, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So that's like I go to 9 to 46 with those, so I can because we have a lot of soloing and I do a lot of bending, and the 10 to 52s in E flat just enough to like add the tension that makes it hard. So the 9 to 46s work good for that, and Shed the Skin is in B standard, and that I use my my V. I have a V, a 1990 67 reissue V that I use for that, and it works really. I can put 11 to 54s on it and go to B standard. A lot of people are like, "Ooh, that must be like loose or something," but on that V, it's not. It's
Hmm.
nice. It's nice and tight. I tried that same. I tried the 11 to 54s on my Explorer,
Hmm.
and that did not work at
Yeah.
all. Like that needs thicker. You got to go up at least to like a 58 or something on the Explorer to get that tension. But
Gotcha.
the V, it works for 11 to 54, and it's nice. It's comfortable in the B standard.
Hell yeah. Um, do you still bring out the SG for either group?
I had that tuned to B standard for a while and was using it with Shed the Skin. I was going back and forth between the Explorer and the SG, but once I tuned that V down, I took one of my Vs because I have 6 Vs. I was like, why am I fucking around? If I like playing the V the best, why don't I tune one of these fuckers to B and be done with it? Which is what I did. So once I tuned that V down to B standard, I stopped using. I went ahead and I restrung the SG up to E flat, and
Okay.
now I can use it with Rip Ride or just playing around the house or whatever. And
Sure.
I don't use it in the death metal tuning anymore.
Gotcha. The reason I asked, I'd seen a video of you playing with Shed the Skin using the SG, and I
Oh yeah,
that's probably one of my favorite guitars of yours. It's
it's a cool one. It is a cool one.
it's so
But
unique.
I play better on the V though. Like it just hey,
Fair enough.
that SG especially. I think the headstock's a little bigger on that one because it's got the
Hmm.
custom diamond and stuff. I could be
Oh
full
yeah.
of shit. I don't know if it is bigger, but it seems like it's a huge headstock and it's real top. That fucking thing wants to dive
Oh
every time.
yeah.
So I spend you know if I want to move up the neck and play a solo, first thing I have to do is keep it from diving, and I don't want to have that little step in there. I
Yeah,
wanted to go and play, and the V never dives. The V's always sit perfect.
nice.
And you can use your knee. You can like use
Yeah,
you can use your knee on the bottom point of the bottom V really easily. Just put your knee forward a little bit, and you can just hold. Michael Shaker does that. That's how I was like, oh shit, that's a great way to steady your fucking guitar. And he full on just like wraps his legs around the bottom of that thing and then shreds. But yeah, I was like, oh, that's cool. So you just put your knee forward a little bit, and that V won't move anywhere, and you can steady it real good. It's just like sitting on your couch with it or something. You
yeah,
can stand on stage and steady it with your knee like that.
that's
So
killer.
so yeah, the SG, it just I didn't want to fight that. I didn't want to fight that dive. It just wants to go. It just I want to play the guitar, not have to like keep it steady and play it at the same time.
For sure. I had a 90s SG here at the house for a little while. It was cousins that I fixed up for him, and I got to jam on it for a little while it was here, and cool guitar. Had a lot of character, but yeah, it felt like you were holding just the neck, like nothing else.
It is very light. The body is really light, and
Yeah.
that's why it wants to dive so bad, because the neck actually weighs more than the body, I think.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Um, Cabinets and speakers. Assume you're probably like an 800 cabinet kind of guy, but I think I've seen you with Mesas
That's
too.
what I did. For we did a tour with I Hate God. We've done several tours with I Hate God, but the first one we did was 2014,
Hmm.
and couple nights there was a lot of steps going up to the venue, and those guys were like, "You want to use our cabs? Go ahead, man." Like, okay, and I plugged into the thing, and so they had the oversized boogies,
Hmm.
and with the V30s, and it sounded fucking great. Like the construction on those things is like a tank, and
Sure.
I went home from that tour and bought one, and now I have two. I have one of the regular size ones and one of the oversized ones, and that's what I use everywhere.
Gotcha. Uh, do you have or did you have still have whatever any of the Marshall cabs, and if so, which
I
ones?
still have the Marshall cab that I still have the one I used for decades. Like the one I used to take with Ringworm everywhere. It's beat to shit, but it works. It's actually, it needs some work. The back plate died on it, so
Mm,
I have to get it. I'm gonna have it put. It's a 900 cab, so it's got
okay.
the two. It's got the two inputs with the rectangle back plate,
Mm,
not like the 800 one that's just a round back plate with one input
sure.
only. So I want to get Jimmy, my guy, Jimmy Kekik is going to come over and take my cab from me, and he's going to have to replace the whole
Gotcha.
back piece, so he can put that different plate on there, the
Yeah.
round. And I haven't gotten around to it yet because I just use the boogies. But
Sure.
eventually, that's what's going to happen. He's going to come over and he's going to have to put a whole new piece of wood on the back and put the round 800 input on the back of that thing to simplify it. Because I've had two of those things go out on me now. The rectangle 900
Really?
plate. Yeah.
Do you Is it one of those things like it's just kind of sitting around and you'd like to get it up and running again to have, or is it something like you're desperately wanting to get that back to like where you can
No,
record with it
no,
or
no. I mean, I just like to. I hate the idea of it just sitting there not working. You know what I mean?
gotcha.
It's
Sure.
basically, I don't need it. I have the two boogie cabs, and Mike Lair, he left his boogie here 2 years ago, and he knows I have it, and he doesn't care if I use it. So I technically have three boogie cabs sitting around that I can use,
Nice.
and the Marshall one, I do want to get it up and running just because it's like bothering me mentally that it's just sitting in my
Yeah.
garage not functioning. But Jimmy was like, wood is so expensive right now. He's like, well, I would wait until the price of wood goes down a little bit since we have to replace the whole back piece. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, whatever. If it was something I needed, I'd be like, fuck it, I'll just pay the money. But I
Right.
don't. I don't need it immediately, so I'll just wait till he says it's a better time.
Fair. Um, and all Mesa brand V30s and every single one of them.
Yeah, I didn't customize anything.
Cool.
Yeah,
People, I mean, there's tons of people that prefer those even over like, regular Celestion V30. Like they swear by the Mesa branded ones.
yeah,
I assume they got to, be spec'd slightly different.
yeah. I have the. I mean, I have the. Like I said, I have with layers. I have two of the regular size cabs and the oversized one, and there's a difference. Like the oversized one might have a little more low end or something, but I think that's more due to
Sure.
the bigger cab than
Sure.
anything else. I
Makes
don't hear a
sense.
huge difference, but but since they're all Mesa branded, I guess I wouldn't hear a huge difference.
Right. And yeah, it's something those oversized. It's something with the combination of the size as well as it being like supposed to be like sealed, like airtight. I think they use like silicone to help seal up any.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen in the back of it. It's real insulated and everything. Yeah, well
I've
built.
got, huh?
They're really well built.
I've got. It's kind of funny. I've got the Marshall competitor, I guess, which was like the Marshall Mode 4 cab.
Yeah, the oversized Marshall cab.
Hmm.
I played through one of those in England. Somebody had one. That thing was cool.
Yeah.
That was a good cab. And Noah at the Noah Buchanan at Mercenary Studios here in Cleveland in Avon, actually, but 20 minutes from my house.
Mm,
He has one of those and he loves it. He's like, it's just
yeah.
like your oversized boogie cab is pretty much what he said. I don't know. Are you
They
about to say
are.
something differently, or no? You agree?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It similar yet different. I don't know. It's
yeah,
so like the speakers in it are like the Celestion 100 watts. So it's, being a 400-watt cab, all that headroom or, that high wattage.
yeah,
It's, you know what I mean? It sounds different for sure. Like,
okay, yeah,
uh, I could doom the fuck out with it, blast like just turn up the bass and like a crazy fuzz blown out kind of sound. And it's not going to even phase those speakers. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then, there's like two different Mode 4 cabs. I think one has like 75s. And
Okay,
then this is like the straight faced one, like the straight cab with the 100 watters, and it's a beast. I'd be curious to hear if anybody ever swapped it out for V30s to see how close they could get it to sound like a Mesa.
yeah,
It makes me sad that they paired this with one of their most unsuccessful amps ever.
yeah. That head is it's a solid state amp, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, it's not my favorite. That's
I've
for
heard
sure.
it's not even a very good one at
No,
that.
it's really. I don't think it is. I don't.
But yeah, I hopefully one day, I don't know, now that they've sold the company, maybe.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Do you feel
Uh,
betrayed?
I don't really care. I mean, it's. I'm not a guy that buys new Marshall stuff anyway. I thought every time I
Sure.
add an amp to my collection, it's because I got a good deal on a '80s one. you know,
Right.
so so it really doesn't affect me one way or the other. I
Yeah,
wasn't going to use the new shit anyway.
sure. It's I kind of feel the same with like Gibson and Mesa. Like,
Same exact. I do feel the same exact way with Gibson as well. Yeah,
yeah.
and my Mesa cabs are all old too. Yeah, so yeah, I'm pretty much everything, everything I use except for pedals. Like
Oh, sure.
a boss pedal's a boss pedal. I think
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go buy a 40-year-old boss pedal, but the amps I definitely want the old ones, and the guitars I like the older ones. I don't have a Gibson that's less than 20 years old. And
Wow.
that's the newest one I have is an '05, and most of them are '90s models or older.
Yeah. Are there any other brands that obviously you like what you like? Um, and Gibson certainly have like their own feel and vibe. There's a lot of brands and a lot of small builders out there now that probably also would feel the same and,
Yeah.
build guitars that are similar, but it'd be a chance to own something a little different that's still newer. Is there anybody kind of on your radar that, maybe like some small shop or maybe a newer brand, something that you'd entertain anyway?
Um, I had a Jackson Rainy Roads V. Not that that's not what you're talking about, I know, but I had a Jackson Rhodes V that I sold a long time ago because it had a Floyd Rose on it, and that drove me nuts. but I just don't have the patience for
Sure.
little tiny pieces of metal that you have to touch that can fall out while you're trying to change a string and like it's just too much work for me. If I had a tech, maybe
Yeah.
then I would deal with I would let them deal with that. But I liked the feel. The Jackson neck felt very Gibson-y. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
great fucking guitar. I just hated that Floyd Rose. Um, I don't like the look though. I don't like the smaller V's. Like I was
Yeah.
watching Kerry King was playing at my work. I work at the House of Blues.
Hmm.
He was playing there 2 nights ago, and I watched him. And those guys, Phil Demmel is up there, and he uses the Jackson King V's and
Yeah.
stuff. And it just to me, it looks small. Everything it's so too pointy and too small.
Yes.
I like the big Michael Schenker looking
Sure.
Gibson V. Yeah, I don't know. I think our old guitar player John Capri, he got guitars built for him from different companies and stuff, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I'm like, I would just want him to build it exactly like a Gibson V anyway. So why,
Right.
why fuck around? And they wouldn't be able to do everything exactly the way I would want it because then they would get sued. And so
Yeah.
I'll just play the Gibsons.
Fair enough. It's it's kind of like there are guys out there that have all the money in the world and they still want to collect antique or vintage kind of cars.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they could afford, brand new Maserati or, whatever, but they like the vintage. Like there's nothing wrong with knowing what you like.
Yeah. The idea of having a guitar built to every spec you might to like just pick the wood, pick every single thing from the ground up. That's cool.
Hmm.
But I know I would probably just build it just like my Black V. Yeah, so what's the point?
Right.
I'm not against customizing the Gibsons though. I do that to all of them. I swap the
Sure.
pickups out to all the always. I don't have a single Gibson that has Gibson pickups in it, and I usually end up swapping out the Clusen tuners for Graphtex or something, and
Sure.
like I have no issues with modding it. They're my guitars. I want them to do
Yeah,
what I want it to do. But I don't. But I'm satisfied with the Gibsons. I just like to change a few bits and pieces on them.
yeah, make them players.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong
But
with
people
that.
are like really offended by that. Like well,
There's
like
some vintage collector
change.
snobs. Yeah,
If you don't like the guitar, why don't you buy another guitar that's made the way you like it? I'm like, I do like the guitar. I just like Graphtec tuners and EMG pickups on it. That's all.
sure.
You know.
Like, yeah, no, sometimes it's just like, well, Gibson doesn't make them exactly like this,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Players have a different mentality than collectors. That's for sure.
Oh,
As a player, you're trying to work with this thing, and you're going to be out there every night, and you want it to play and sound and look the way you need it to.
for sure. I no. I am the same kind of mentality where I guess one example, I have one of the Epiphone Ghost Horse guitars, like the Brendan Small one. It's got a Floyd, and it's 24 frets and a flame maple top, but it's an Explorer.
Okay.
And it's like, well, why don't you just, get a Gibson? It's like, well, because Gibson doesn't have one of these.
Yeah.
Like, like how many Explorers have you seen with the Floyd that's 24 frets,
None. Yeah.
that's still 24 and three quarters, and has the flame top, like it's
Yeah.
just it's got
Oh,
specs that don't exist on anything else.
yeah.
But for me, it's perfect.
Explorers in general are way too heavy for me. They're just big. Like
They are big.
I'm 5'7", and that thing is just like bigger than me. I have one. I have an '89 Explorer that I got a great deal on. I got it for $600. This was 15 years ago or something probably, but
Hmm.
but it's awesome. It's black, the black '89 Explorer, hard shell case. I love the thing. It's great for recording if you can sit.
Hmm.
But every time I play out live with that thing, I'm like, yeah, I'm never using this thing. It's like having a coffee table hanging off your shoulder.
That's funny. Yeah, I dig them. It's been one of my favorite shapes a long time, but uh, I had noticed a little bit more tension on, my shoulder and everything on that guitar specifically over any of my other guitars.
Yeah, it's a big, bulky son of a bitch. It's
Yeah.
just dude. The body alone is like just massive. And then the net, and then the headstock's like this goddamn long. It's like a big hockey puck.
So cool though.
Oh yeah, they look awesome. But but on me, even when I watch videos back or anything, I'm like, man, that thing just looks way too big for me. I had like a 80s model, early 80s model Warlock that was
Mhm.
with like the old with the R on the headstock, and the
Ooh.
American made awesome Warlock came with a Kaler. I sold that to Wayne from Solus, Wayne Richards. He still
Mm.
has it, but it was the same thing. That thing was just really big on me, way too big and way too heavy for me. But
I
he's like 6 foot fucking five or something. It's
Oh well shit. Yeah,
perfect for him, you know.
definitely. Um Wanted to ask you about songwriting, but first first I got to get your opinion on something. So, you're an Alice Cooper fan, you're a Kiss fan. Okay, so as a fan of both acts, how do you feel about uh I don't know what the term would be, like an outside writer, ghost writer, producer contributing, aka Desmond Child, who wrote probably for each group
Yeah,
probably
he
their
wrote
biggest
Poison with
hits.
Alice. He wrote Poison with Alice, and he wrote I think I think him and Michael Bolton helped Paul Stanley write Forever, and yeah, he has written for both many songs for both bands and for Aerosmith and for
Yeah.
who else? I don't know. Everybody,
Bon Jovi
Yeah, Bon Jovi for sure. Yeah,
wrote Living on a Prayer, for God's sakes. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I understand why those artists would do that, and you know, but especially like Kiss and Alice Cooper were trying to be relevant in the 80s. And,
yeah.
there's 70s artists that are trying to stay relevant and stay on top in the 80s. So you get some guy who's a hit machine,
Mhm.
in here to help you write something that's going to, he really does understand what the climate of musical climate is now. And he helps them
Yeah.
catch up to the times or whatever. I get why they would do that because they're but they're on a level that I'm not that none of my bands are ever gonna be on. And so no, I don't have any interest in that at all. I like writing my own fucking shit,
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was just kind of curious because I was on a kick and watched like a couple podcasts with Desmond Child and
I mean, I love a lot of what he's done.
sure.
I don't like those songs. I don't like Poison too much. That's usually like when Alice Cooper plays Poison, which he always does, and every time he plays, that's a good place to go take a piss and grab a beer, you know. But I mean, yeah, I like some of the shit he did with Kiss, and I guess I don't like much of what he did with Aerosmith. I liked them better when they wrote their own songs. I
Yeah.
like all of them better when they wrote their own songs. All those artists were talking. Every artist I like better when they wrote their own songs.
What what about Ricky Martin? No, I'm just kidding.
Did he ever write a song?
I I'd be surprised. I'd be really
I have
surprised.
no idea, but I would be surprised too.
I think yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from Desmond Child. But as far as the songwriting process for Ringworm, other than hiring Desmond Child, what is the what what does the songwriting process usually look like for you guys?
um, Pretty much for as long as I've been in the band, which is 24 years now. Um, it's been that I I come up with I sit in my house and come up with the song, come up with the music, come up with some riffs and piece them together, make songs, and then I work it out with the drummer. There have been several in in that amount of time. It's the same process with Shed the Skin too. I work it out with Kyle, but in Ringworm, I work it out with the drummer, and then we record the record usually. James James has barely, really not heard a whole lot of what we've done, and then he hears it when we go to the studio, we track, and then he hears it, and then he starts to come up with ideas for his lyrics, and then so the music's kind of done before he even steps in and gets involved. He's usually working on the album cover already by then,
Huh.
and he trusts me to take care of the music end of it and teach the guys in the band the songs and all that shit. Go in the studio and track it, and then he hears that,
Yeah.
and then that inspires him to come up with the lyrics and go in there and scream his fucking balls off.
That's so cool that at this point that there's enough trust in the band where it's not like everybody has to be there to give like a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Like
Yeah.
you can just kind of blindly trust each other to do your share.
There's times where he makes some changes because like maybe he has an idea where a verse needs to go up two more measures than what I put there or whatever. But it's easy with Pro Tools to do that,
Sure.
to just cut and paste that measure, those extra two, just repeat two of the measures that didn't have like a drum fill that where it would
Yeah.
be obvious or something. You know what I mean? And you can, or sometimes he wants it shorter. Sometimes I go longer than what he thought it needed to go and cut a few out. With Pro Tools, you can do all that stuff after the fact. So there are some changes get made to the structures of not really the structures, but just some edits get made later, additions or subtractions to the length of parts. Not very often, but it does happen sometimes where he's got an idea where I didn't want to sing that long over that part, or I wanted to, or sometimes he only wants to sing over half of a riff, and that gives me a space, and I'll go back in after the fact and add a guitar solo there where I didn't plan on originally or something.
Mhm.
Like if he leaves a room open where I didn't anticipate it, I'll go back in and add some shit later.
Okay. Um, do you guys have your own recording setup that you will write with and do pre-production, or is this just like part of your recording process?
Um, yeah, at home I just like throw my iPhone in front of my Spark amp,
Yeah.
like I sit it down in front of the Spark amp, and I have an app in here called Spire that lets you multi-track pretty
Okay.
easily, and so I multi-track on the Spire app on my phone, and then that's what I send to the drummer so they can familiarize themselves with the songs, and then we get together and jam on them, and that's really all the pre-production or demoing that gets done, and then we go in the studio and just start doing the actual album.
Nice. Love it. It's not muddying up the waters too much or getting hooked.
Yeah, I never
I
got Brian Sakula is a old friend here in Cleveland. He had a band called Terror long before back in
oh
1987, the Cleveland's first death metal, death thrash band or whatever. But great band. But he gave me some shit that I should be able to record at home with, where I could even track my leads at home instead of going in the studio
mhm.
and everything. But I'm just so accustomed to my ways and not that great with technology that I it just sits in the bag, the same bag that he gave it to me, and I haven't ever learned to use it. I still
And
just do it
if
the
it's
iPhone in front of the Spark amp until it's time to actually record the album.
sure, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Um, what was your earliest kind of influences? I have a feeling I know, but what was the thing that actually made you want to get into playing guitar?
Um, my parents were real young when they had me, 17, both of them, and
Wow.
this was early 70s. 1971 was when I was born, so uh they were into Black Sabbath and Alice Cooper and Deep Purple and Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin and all this, all the shit that of that time,
Yeah,
all the harder edge stuff of the time. And so that was always on around me. Plus, back in those days, it wasn't real common for kids that young to have a kid. So none of their friends had kids. So I was just surrounded by people that were teenagers all the time,
Yeah.
even though I was just a 3-year-old kid or whatever. I had no other kids around or anything. So I never really like learned to play with Tonka trucks and shit like that. I just saw all my friends were 17-year-old friends of my parents who were listening to Alice Cooper records and shit around the house. And that's what I just got fascinated with my dad's record collection and then Kiss I found in on my own, that not from my parents' collection. And that was my first band that I felt like, oh, that's my band. You know, like Kiss was the band that I liked that my dad didn't even like or whatever.
Hmm.
And, so yeah, that's what got me interested in music. And then when I turned 12, 1983, uh, that's like Quiet Riot, Metal Health, and Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, Def Leppard, Pyromania, all that stuff was going on, and I was just, hey, my Shih Tzu has something to say. Uh, yeah, that's the music. That's the music that made me want to get a guitar. Really, and I got the guitar when I was in 1985. I got my first guitar, so 40 years ago.
Do you still
Sophie, Joey, what are you doing here?
do you still
Um,
remember your first guitar?
yeah, Joey, could you take care of these dogs? It was a Electra Les Paul copy. It was a Les Paul copy, a Japanese Les Paul copy, like Fuji. Get out of here!
Don't worry, I can always edit.
All right, she's taking care of the dogs. Okay, thank you. Hi, Belle. Yeah, it was an Electra Les Paul copy that my dad bought from his friend. Uh, his friend was he had a friend that played guitar, and he's like, "Do you have a guitar you would sell me? My son wants a guitar. Matt wants a guitar, you know." And that's what I got for Christmas 1985 was a it was like a wood grain, nice Japanese Les Paul knockoff. You know, I used that for about a year or so, and then I thought I was upgrading to a Kramer Striker, but I was actually downgrading to a Kramer Striker. And just I thought, everybody's using Kramers in the 80s and stuff, and that's the good guitar. And I got
Mhm.
the cheapest Kramer there is, and uh, and I used that for very briefly, and then I got an Ibanez RG 560. I only just recently sold that one. I used that one. I used that one in the Blood of Christ days, and then I got a Les Paul Studio, and that's when I was like, okay, that's what I like. I like that one, And I really never played anything but Gibson since then. The SG was the next one. The SG was the next guitar I got after that Les Paul Studio.
Damn. um, Going into musical inspirations from over the years, things like that. Obviously, we kind of chatted before we started recording about your Goblin shirt. Are there any like movie scores or anything like that that's ever really drawn to you? Are you a big fan of a lot of movie scores
I
or?
mean, I love all the Goblin stuff that they did with,
Sure.
yeah, and all the Carpenter soundtracks, and yeah, I mean, I love a lot of that, a lot of the Omen, that's evil sound and shit, and Tubular Bells from The Exorcist, and I love the movie music is great, I'm really interested in that
Have
and movies in general,
Sure. Um, it's been a reoccurring theme on this podcast with various guests about like the parallels of horror movie or horror movie fandom and heavy metal.
especially death metal, but yeah, just metal in
For
general,
sure.
yeah,
I mean, possession or possessed exorcist,
yeah,
um, like couldn't be more obvious with that one.
yeah.
But like, um, has there ever been like a melody or anything specifically from any movies that you've maybe borrowed influence from or anything that you could
Uh,
think of
I'm
consciously?
I'm sure there's been a bunch probably, but I'm trying to think of an example. And nothing's jumping out at me right now.
Sure.
Trying but yes, I guarantee that's happened numerous times. I just can't think of. I don't usually like try to mimic something
Yeah.
as much as maybe try to draw inspiration from. Like I'll be like, oh, I want to write a song that sounds like that song kind of, or that has the vibe of that song kind of. Like there's a song on Shed the Skin's Domo Genesis album that I was trying to kind of write like a trouble the skull
Mhm.
kind of pray for the dead type of song, but not make it sound exactly like that, but
Yeah.
trying to capture that vibe, I do that a lot.
I I always joke like whenever I do it, like coming up with like a royalty free version of like a specific melody.
Yeah.
Yeah, just something not to get a copyright strike, but still get the idea.
Yeah.
Uh, we'll kind of wrap this up with what is your top four or your Mount Rushmore of bands or albums, whatever's easier to come up with on the spot.
And well, I'm definitely Kiss is definitely on there. Man, that's hard with four bands. Uh yeah, I mean, Black Sabbath is probably I can't do four yeah, Alice Cooper, Kiss, Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper. Man, I love Merciful Fate. I love Judas Priest. I love the Scorpions. I love fucking so much shit. Metallica, like so many bands that I'm a big fan of. So what did I say? Kiss, Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper. I probably would maybe I'd put the Scorpions on there because you get Michael Schenker and you get Lee John
Oh,
Roth that way.
right,
But I mean, that could if you ask me that same question tomorrow, there might be some changes made. I don't know.
right on. I God, I love the Uli John Roth era of
Oh, me too.
Scorpions.
Yeah,
I find I don't learn other people's songs very often anymore. It was kind of something I did more, in the first few years of playing.
yeah.
But I last week, I don't know what came over me. I had to learn how to play Sales of uh
Sharon.
yeah.
That's how he says it live.
How's he
Sales of
say it?
Sharon.
Sharon?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've seen him live a bunch of times. He goes, "The sales of Sharon." Like I always thought it was Karen, but
I did too,
yeah,
or
yeah,
Heron or whatever.
yeah.
But regardless, one of the sickest riffs and coolest openings. And then go,
That's one of the greatest guitar solos. Just that kicks that song off right
yeah.
there. Yeah. Since your thing is called Rings of Death Metal, what if we did the same? Let's do death metal Mount Rushmore. That's a little easier too because it's more specific. It narrows it down.
Yeah. Normally that is kind of how the question goes, but
Yeah,
it's like I'm familiar enough with your background. It's like I wonder if he'd rather do more like 70s bands or something, but
I
yeah,
did
we
pick.
can we can do like a Mount Rushmore death metal.
Yeah, that would be. I think Autopsy, Entombed, Morbid Angel. Now who do I pick for the fourth? I got two American. Oh, she's in there going, ooh, she's saying Celtic Frost or Hellhammer, but I was thinking more along the lines of, I mean, that's a great choice. I was just thinking more like death. That's like pre-death metal, you know what I mean? But that's a good enough choice. I'll go with Celtic Frost. Even
Fair
I'm
enough.
not even sure if that actually qualifies as death metal, but
Hey, if it's what every death metal band borrowed from,
yeah, exactly.
knowingly or
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
then we'll
yeah,
go with that.
sure, yeah.
Like we'd also accept Venom or Bathory,
Oh, sure, and
Either.
those both count, especially Venom. I'm a huge Venom. I love Bathory too, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
Venom is a big. I mean, I have a Venom tattoo. I'm
killer. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us. Is there anything you want to plug, like upcoming shows? Have you guys started writing for the next album yet, or?
yeah, the record. I have more than enough material for the next record, and all I got to do is get together with our drummer Grady and start busting it out. We'd finished a Shed the Skin record. That's because Shed the Skin is playing MDF this year, and
Fuck.
so the record is going to be out. We busted ass to get the record mixed and mastered and ready to go so that it could be out because it takes a long time to get shit pressed nowadays and shit. So we got that turned in December, which gave us Hell's Headbangers said that was enough time that they could get it out for MDF. So that's the plan, is that that'll be out by the time we do that MDF performance. Um, I'm gonna have to pretty soon here start working with Grady on the Ringworm one, and hopefully maybe we can get that out by the end of the year or early next year, depending on
Sure.
how quick that comes together. And Rip Ride just finished a record, just put a record out. We just put it out 100 CDs ourselves. We haven't, and we're gonna do 100 LPs too. But yeah, so that's what's going on. We have some Ringworm shows coming up locally, and we're playing in Tacoma, Washington at the end of the month, headlining
Okay.
a fest. And yeah, we just got back from England. That's pretty much it for now, I guess. What's going on?
Killer. And we'll have links for all the different social media platforms for Ringworm and Shed the Skin and everybody else in the description of the video on YouTube. So awesome. Well,
All right,
Matt,
cool.
thanks again. It was an absolute pleasure. Um, and hope to have you on again here sometime. Maybe talk
All
about
right, that'd be great. Hell yeah.
future releases.
Yeah,
Cool.
thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good one, man. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Peace.